Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Requirements for App Delivery in a Hybrid Multi-Cloud World. My name is Jeremy Schwartz, and I'm the Digital Strategist for NetScaler here at Citrix. I'm joined today by Nihal Mirashi, Senior Product Marketing Manager for NetScaler, and Mikko Disini, Director of Product Management for NetScaler. In today's session, Nihal will kick things off and share with you our views on what makes a good app delivery solution in this new hybrid multi-cloud world. We will walk you through a demo of NetScaler Management Analytics Service, and lastly, Mikko will share his insights on some top use cases that might be relevant to your deployment. Before I go into the presentation, let me quickly review a few housekeeping details. We'll have a live Q&A session toward the end of today's event, and you're welcome to submit questions during the presentation. Simply type your question into the Ask a Question window and click Submit. Also, we are recording this event, and the on-demand version will be available from the same link that you used to join today. So feel free to come back, watch the archive, or share it with your colleagues.
Thank you for the introduction, Jeremy. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I'd like to take the next few minutes and talk to you about the requirements for app delivery in a hybrid and multi-cloud world. Cloud computing has become the new normal. It's not a matter of if applications are moving to the cloud, it's a matter of when. And by and large, companies are moving apps to the cloud for three main reasons. One is the digital transformation that's happening and embracing that digital transformation to be more agile as far as the speed of development of these applications, lowering the cost of the investment and lowering CapEx for these applications, as well as having that global reach across multiple regions and being able to scale up and scale down as the demand increases or decreases. So with this new world of cloud, there are some challenges facing application delivery. Some of them are new, some of them have existed for a while and continue as businesses deploy applications to the cloud. Reliability is certainly one critical challenge, making sure that the applications are up and available 24/7. The other is around performance. Slow performing applications tend to decrease the employee productivity, and that is certainly always a challenge. Security is looming large in a lot of companies. Making sure that intellectual property is well protected, you don't have any data losses. And then from a cloud perspective, making sure that you have essentially the same control and visibility across the clouds. How do you actually provide the same application experience regardless of whether the application is on-prem or in the cloud? And the last part is around costs, and how do you actually manage the life cycle of the application as it's getting migrated over to the cloud? Interestingly enough, IDC did a survey of different network experts like yourself on what would be the top requirements of an application delivery solution. And the three top requirements that came out as must-haves are app reliability, security, and the end-to-end visibility. So reliability in this context is reliability of the application, not just from the data center to the same site, but actually across from any cloud to the branch office users, as branch office users expect the same level of application performance as the users anywhere else. Also, security is critical, as you need to secure the apps in any cloud. And then the last piece is around visibility, right? Being able to have that visibility across multiple clouds. So how did we get here? If we take a step back and we look at the distributed workforce that needed access to applications and have that high availability or high access to applications, that's where load balancing came into the picture. And in fact, a lot of enterprises start with actually deploying load balancers to be able to make sure that the application servers are not impacted by the traffic, and that the load balancer can manage that. But application delivery is not just load balancing. It's a lot more than that. As user expectations increased and they had higher expectations around application performance, especially users that were connecting from the web, the solutions evolved to actually looking at what could be done to the traffic itself. And that's where dealing with chatty protocols like TCP with TCP optimization, compression and caching, and some of the other techniques came into picture to actually improve the application performance. And then security became a critical component of application delivery as applications started moving into multiple domains, protecting them against any kind of denial of service attacks, providing the remote VPN access for remote users, and also as applications started proliferating, being able to provide single sign-on capabilities for the users to make sure that they have access only to those applications that they're entitled to. So this kind of led to, beyond the load balancer, to look at web application firewalls and gateways and other pieces that actually started comprising the application delivery solution. Now, everything that I talked about was about application delivery from the data center, point A, to the user, point B at the same site. But when you actually extend this beyond to the branch office and remote users across the WAN, they have the same expectation as far as application delivery is concerned. So this is where WAN optimization techniques to actually deal with congestion and latency came into play, as well as the introduction of WAN virtualization technologies, SD-WAN, to actually provide that capability of aggregating the WAN links and give that same reliability and resiliency that is needed for application delivery. So fast forward to today, where application workloads are now moving to the cloud, it's adding a layer of complexity. As applications are moving, they have to be delivered across clouds. And you could actually try to solve this by adding point solutions. You may have a solution for your load balancer from vendor A, you might have a firewall from vendor B, and so on and so forth. But the reality is that point solutions create islands of data, and given the fact that application delivery infrastructure is sitting at a vantage point where it can actually see the traffic that's coming from the application to the end user and provide that keen insights, when you actually go with point solutions, that actually adds a layer of complexity, makes it harder for IT teams when it comes to actually looking at performance data for the applications and being able to resolve those issues. So this is certainly a challenge that a lot of teams face as these applications are moving to the cloud.
Yeah. So Nihal, thanks for that. What I'm hearing, what I've just heard from you say is that load balancing is not application delivery, and here that so we've got apps who are now on-prem in the right here, and these apps are some of these apps, whether they're greenfield apps or legacy apps, are being spun up and created in the cloud. It's the one above you with AWS and Azure. As well as potentially the company might have, or the customer might have, SaaS applications like Salesforce or and so on, right? So, I mean, Citrix, we do this. So we are actually an example of a company with apps on-prem, apps in the cloud. We also have our own, we also consume cloud services like Salesforce.com. And so what we've learned is also based on our experience, and what we've learned is that there is a set of practices that IT Ops uses to secure, ensure the resiliency in the configuration and monitoring of these applications through the load balancer or through the ADC on-prem, and that they would want that same experience off-prem. So when they move apps to the cloud, they'd want to have that same way they manage and get stats and configure and essentially troubleshoot issues that they do on-prem as well as in the cloud. And to do that, the best way to do that is to have the same NetScaler stack on-prem and same stack in the cloud. The other piece to that is you mentioned single sign-on. So we've got customers who use Zen Apps and Desktop on-prem, and they also have web apps on-prem. They also have web apps off-prem in the cloud, and SaaS applications that they use. And they use NetScaler as a single sign-on device. So they VPN in, and from that they can access other apps wherever they might be. And so the way you now architect a solution, as you bring in this hybrid cloud element, is quite important. So here I think what we've done is, what Nihal is pointing out is that you can have different point solutions. Each will have its own dashboards, its own collection points for analytics or for logging, and that could be a problem for you, and so on. So could you please continue?
Great insights, Mikko. And that's actually a great segue into the next slide, especially around some of the other complexities when it comes to this move to the hybrid and multi-cloud environments, right? How do you actually ensure that there's branch reliability and connectivity for a smooth application delivery? How do you actually provide security? How do you actually provide the availability and the end-to-end visibility? So all of these are critical things that need to be addressed as applications are moving to the cloud. And I would submit to you that NetScaler, Citrix NetScaler is really the only solution that's out there that's actually providing the application delivery for hybrid and multi-clouds, and it's actually providing that delivery to the branch from any cloud. And at the core of the NetScaler solution are the network services, be it load balancing, the web application firewall or SD-WAN that can actually be provided at any form factor and any deployed in any cloud. And on the top of this is the actual management and analytics that's actually providing you the central configuration management and visibility and analytics that is needed to actually look at your complete deployment.
So let me just point it out, right? So what we have been here at Citrix, we've been looking at the problem of hybrid cloud for a long time. And first we were looking at how much of our customers' applications we think will move from on-prem to the cloud, and what type of applications would probably be born in the cloud. And what we've learned was that based on talking to analysts and our customers, and even our experience, is that we believe roughly, whether it's 50%, but roughly around 50% of apps, 40%, 50% of apps will remain on-prem, right? So we're looking at 3 or 4 years down the road, and there'll be a large chunk of apps, again 50%, maybe 60% of apps will be in the cloud. So what you end up with is a situation where you have apps on-prem and apps in the cloud for the foreseeable future. So that's one aspect of this. And so how do you ensure that the apps you have spun off-prem in the cloud have the same policies, security principles or policies applied to them, same way to diagnose them, troubleshoot them, same way to manage the application such that you can identify what's going on and basically make sure the apps are always running? And so for that, we've come up with that the management stack is actually as important, if not more important, than the proxy. So here, what that means is that you want a management control plane that ties both the cloud and on-prem. And that's what Citrix has built, is that with that premise, we believe that there is a need for a strong management stack that can manage essentially any NetScaler across any location. And we built what's called, we call locally, internally, the Management and Analytics System, or MAS. It's also available as a service. We call it Management and Analytics Service, which I believe we will demo in this webinar. What MAS is, simply, it is a single point of information with APIs to access the information for analytics, for visibility, for manageability, for as a source of configuration, and for fleet managing all the NetScalers as an infrastructure, as well as at the device level. So you can go from the device level all the way up to the application level, and you can see the visibility across the whole infrastructure of where NetScaler is deployed through this management and analytics system, what we call MAS, and so on, right? So that's our point of view, and so that's something that we've now launched in the market, have been made available for the past 18 months, and we've had a very much a good success with MAS, and MAS service was launched early this year. So we believe that our take is that customers will actually build their platforms around these elements. And in fact, you're going to talk about an example of a customer, aren't we?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great segue, Mikko. So recently, Mikko and I met this customer. It's a mid-cap company, and they're actually a NetScaler customer, as well as they've got XenApp and XenDesktop on-premise. They're actually moving their apps to the cloud. In fact, I think they're looking at roughly over a period of time, 60% of their applications are moving to the cloud, and 40% are staying on-prem. So this is a very common case that we see with a lot of our customers, and it comes down to how do you actually manage this hybrid deployment? How do you actually you could actually have multiple different applications managing your on-prem and off-prem deployments, but as Mikko mentioned, that actually does not give you that same experience where you can actually have data in a central place or a central place to actually manage it and secure it. So in the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through a demo of NetScaler Maps as a Service. Now, I realize that we may not be able to get into all the details of the solution, but I want to touch upon some of the key points that we talked to this customer about around analytics, around device management, and the security.
Yeah, so just to recap on this, right? So this is a large customer. This is a mid-cap customer, right? So they have XenApps and Desktop on-prem, which is a large number of customers of Citrix have XenApps and Desktop on-prem. Some, in fact, have XenApps and Desktop in the cloud that they've spun up in AWS with NetScalers, like NetScaler VP Access acting as gateways. In this use case, the NetScalers have the following functions. One is they are running as the access to the XenApps and Desktop. It provides the single sign-on to other apps that they have in the cloud as web apps. It also acts as an ADC for their other production apps that they have in the data center. And their goal is, what they came back to us was, look, we could spin up. We need a way to, how should we think about an architecture or an infrastructure as we continue to build our apps on the cloud, right? We'll have greenfield apps, we'll go in the cloud, but our legacy apps will stay on-prem, but then we're going to migrate them to the cloud, refactor some of them, and move them to the cloud. So what should we think about? So it comes down to the following points. What will be their philosophy for managing the infrastructure? Is that going to be discrete, distributed, or will that be centralized, but with access across the whole on-prem and off-prem? How will they ensure security for the applications on-prem and the applications in the cloud? How will they manage a multi-cloud environment when they plan to do that in the future? So they may start with one cloud provider like AWS, but over time they'll spin up other cloud providers, taking advantage of potentially pricing, geo-redundancy, and so on, right? They'll move applications elsewhere as well. And how will they manage configuration? How will they manage troubleshooting? How can they tie these clouds together such that capacity, user access can be given to locations where there's capacity, where the best experience could be possible? So effectively using things like GSLB, Global Server Load Balancing, how can they effectively load balance across these clouds and across on-prem so that users can be provided the best experience? So that's the things that they're thinking about as they build this cloud. So in all of that, we've discussed that a control plane like Maps is the most important thing, and here Nihal is about to give you a demo.
Awesome. Thanks, Mikko. So what you're looking at here is the application dashboard, and I'm going to cover some of the analytic pieces first. So the application dashboard is actually giving you an at-a-glance view of your applications, both on-premise as well as in the cloud. And it's a one place where you have to go where you can actually look at the application performance health. The color actually provides how healthy is the application, with dark blue being the healthiest, as well as the size of the tile is indicating the throughput of the application. So let's actually click on.
Yeah, just one thing to add, right? So I think you clicked on the SAP application.
I did, yeah.
Yeah, so in this case, we've got some apps in the cloud. We've got SAP happens to be an on-prem app. And the way we do this is that we can mask and aggregate multiple VIPs or V servers together that make up an application and show them as a tile here, right? So instead of looking at multiple V servers or VIPs and see the health of these VIPs for this app, in one tile I can see everything combined, and that's the app. This happens to be an SAP app. and it shows light blue, I believe.
Yeah, it shows light blue, and then it's actually the performance health is based on an industry AppDex score, which really, when you look at that, it's NetScaler detecting any kind of anomalies in the application or any kind of other things that are going on. There's also essentially the app server resource, which actually shows what are the active services. Is there any kind of search, which will also impact the performance. And within this, when you are drilling down into this application, you can actually look at the transactions per second and connections and other key metrics related to this application. So it's a great way of actually looking at a glance and then being able to drill down into specific details.
Yep. This is great, right? So the one thing that drives this app health score is a few things, right? So we look at things like anomalies, which servers are responding, which ones are not, why is one responding better than the other. So we run things like trend lines on the application in terms of performance of all these servers, and we look at where there's an anomaly. So things like we have a surge queue is one parameter you'll see here, right? So for us, when you see a surge queue go up, which means that some servers are not responding enough because they're probably overloaded. But in any case, we take this information, we add them together. We also look at the NetScaler information. So if it's a hardware platform, we look at the systems information, and together we combine these. These are inputs that drive what's called the app health score. And then you can also drill down to each of these specific discrete elements, the application performance itself or the NetScaler performance itself, and so on, right? So that's one aspect of this. The other aspect, as Nihal said, is there's all these other counters that we make available. These counters are in NetScaler, but we make available as across the application now in this nice on the right side here, right? So these metrics are actually very, very much in use by our customers, and now available as an interface here is great. By the way, all this information is available through an API, so our customers can just use an API through NetScaler Mass. And then get that information directly if they want to use an automation, their own automation framework on top.
Okay. Let's move on now to security. So security is all about managing your threats, and here at the security dashboard, it gives you an at-a-glance view of what's the threat level. What are the applications that are actually most under attack. Where is the attack actually coming from? In this case, it's coming from Russia. And you can actually drill down in each of these applications to actually get details about what kind of attacks or what kind of threats that particular application is. So really, there is the threat index is pretty high for this Workday application. Looks like it's under attack from some cross-site resource type of attack. And then if you actually look at the safety index, it's fairly low. We do make recommendations on what needs to be done on the application to secure it. And in this case, the security check is not complete because those recommendations have not yet been implemented. Mikko, anything else you would like to add here?
Yeah, so basically this security index is based on two input levels, right? One is data on attacks hitting the NetScaler. So that's what Nihal showed you, all these attacks that we see. So NetScaler is used as a security device. It's a layer 7 DDoS platform that our customers use across their infrastructure. And so we have the ability to detect, and it's also a web application firewall as well, right? So we have the ability to detect a variety of different attacks on the NetScaler, and then we can track those. So that's one aspect. The other aspect we've discovered is that how well have you configured the NetScaler to mitigate these attacks? So the threat index comprises of the attacks on one end and then the configuration of NetScaler on the other end. And here in this screen, Nihal is showing you the actual configuration of NetScaler and whether the configuration we feel is complete or not. So we can then run checks in the configuration and say, hey, you're missing the following configuration that needs to be corrected so that you can make the NetScaler robust and protect your applications. And therefore, this security dashboard will then provide a lower number for the for the security index will be lower. So the security index is impacted by attacks on one end and configuration on the other end to mitigate the attacks. So that's basically the point here.
Great points, Mikko. Now, as I mentioned at the start of the demo, this customer is also a XenApp, XenDesktop. They have a XenApp, XenDesktop on-premise deployment, and we actually provide insights into that XenApp, XenDesktop environment through NetScaler Mass. And here, what you're looking at is actually a list of the users that have active sessions. You can actually click on any of these users and actually see what kind of performance is being experienced. What is the latency, what is the bandwidth being used, and so this is really helpful information for an IT team that needs to actually troubleshoot any issues that come up, be it user access, be it performance, through the NetScaler management and analytics service. Now we've talked a lot about analytics, so if I can switch gears and talk a little bit more about device management itself. What you're looking at here is the network dashboard, which actually gives you at a glance view of your deployment, whether it's on-premise data centers or in the cloud, AWS, Azure. You can actually look at how many different instances you have, and then actually drill down and look at what are the most critical events. And it looks like there's been a lot of major events that happen over the day, so you can actually look at specific specific events, or drill down to specific events, and then take corrective action, or even look at some of the syslog messages. So in addition to all of this good stuff around device management is the capability of enforcing your SSL certificates in your environment. So this SSL dashboard actually gives you an at-a-glance view of how many certificates are active, how many have expired, how many need renewals, which are not the recommended ones. So it's a really quick way of fixing and taking corrective action. Last but not the least, moving on from device management to actually the configuration management. We have intuitive configuration templates, declarative templates called style books that allow you to actually apply them to NetScalers. And Mikko, I think you have a lot of experience in this regard.
Yeah, right. So what we've learned is that first of all, customers want to use templates to configure their fleet of devices, NetScalers or otherwise, right? It's part of what's called infrastructure as code. So these templates are the code where it becomes a source of truth for configuring these NetScalers. If you have one template, we can then apply across multiple NetScalers, and therefore you can version control these templates. Then you can apply them across NetScalers, and then if somebody tampers, assuming somebody with appropriate credentials changes the configuration on the NetScaler somewhere, the mass will then detect the change in configuration and will flag that as a configuration drift. So the point here is that we've got templates that allows our customers to enable infrastructure as code, and then we can also provide feedback to the customer when somebody has tampered the configuration. And that's important because sometimes the issue with a user experience or with a performance problem is actually a configuration drift. So Nihal, I think we've drilled down a bit on mass. We've covered the way you can use mass for applications that are being delivered by NetScaler. You've covered security, and these NetScalers could be on-prem or off-prem. You've also covered configuration. You've covered a little bit deeper into managing each device using for SSL certificates. I think you're going to show us now the dashboard on the network dashboard.
Yeah, we took a look at that, and essentially this network dashboard gives you an at-a-glance view of your deployments, both in on-premise and AWS and Azure, as well as you can drill down into some of these details. So that, in a nutshell, is the mass in terms of the analytics and analytics, device management, and configuration. And Mikko, I think you had something interesting that you wanted to point out.
Yeah, the nice thing about this dashboard is that you can see from this dashboard just these any kind of events that are happening in any of these NetScalers. So if you just go back a little bit up, Nihal, you'll see that you have first of all, you have NetScalers in the cloud and NetScalers on-prem. And then you can also then, on each of these NetScalers, you can just hover of them and you can see, hey, if there are any events that are happening and the severity of these events, right? So basically, from a IT ops perspective, they have one place they can look at quickly, hey, do I have a problem anywhere in the cloud or do I have a problem on-prem or your problem in other clouds, right? So that MAS provides you that quick visibility since it is the source of truth for all information coming from NetScalers. Now imagine if you had we talked about point solutions. If you had point solutions in the cloud and point solutions on-prem, you would not have this capability to share this information in this logical way to present it. Even the simple thing as, well, you could, but it takes a lot of work. I think so there's development work to make that happen. Well, we provide sort of out of the box with MAS. Okay?
Great point, Mikko. And so why don't we switch gears here, and do you want to talk to them about the digital transformation that's happening in companies, and as they're moving to the cloud, and what are the kind of things that they need to be aware of?
Sure. Thanks, Nihal. So I talk to a lot of customers who are Citrix customers overall, so they have multiple products that they consume from Citrix, or they're NetScaler's customers exclusively, and these are mostly large to mid-sized companies. And one thing that's coming clearly to me is that these companies have a digital transformation team in the company that's looking at how can they effectively move faster, how can they go faster, how can they change their architecture and try new things so they can actually be more nimble. And if I step back a bit, what's driving this, and from my point of view, is that companies are trying to add value with their existing lines of businesses by making these lines of businesses more customer-friendly and more accessible by customers. And a proof of that is things like apps, right? So we're seeing companies building apps. I mean, Fidelity as an app you can use. So Fidelity is a traditional financial company. I actually have Fidelity. We have Fidelity here in Citrix. And they have an app, which is a very good app that allows you to get information about your account. So it's a great app. Oral-B, which is a toothbrush company, they have a motorized toothbrush which has Bluetooth support that you can then stream data into a Oral-B app that now again sends data back to the central server or to the cloud about your habits, right? And then there's also, of course, NAB, so that's NBA as well as MLB, so Major League Baseball. So these companies have apps. My point is that there are developers developing these apps, right? And the developers need to move fast, and so they spin up apps in the cloud. They may have a development platform on-prem, but they also spin up apps in the cloud so they can move quickly. And what I'm hearing is that there is a need for speed. But speed gives them is immediate speed to develop something, try it out, and that ability to try out gives them immediate feedback from users, for example. And that immediate feedback allows them to increase their pace of innovation. So that's why they like to spin up stuff in the cloud or have that cloud-native capability on-prem. They also, since want to be infrastructure free, so they want to try something for a few months. They don't want to be able to. They don't have to like spin up infrastructure on-prem. They just want to consume something and pay a metered price for that. So infrastructure fee and metered price. And once they want to they want to be able to do this in a global basis, right? So they may have a development team in Greece and a development team in Paris, for example, a development team in New York or in San Francisco. The cloud gives them the ability to spin up applications, since these cloud providers like AWS have global reach. Now, the journey to the cloud, I believe, is a two-step process. You'll have on-prem data center, and then some of these companies have now apps they deploy in the cloud, traditional apps, or they'll deploy new greenfield apps in the cloud directly. So this is what I call the on-premise data center and the cloud. So it's one cloud. And then in the future, once they have mastered that process, they may spin up in more than one cloud, right? Taking advantage of price discrepancies, or it could be application functionality available in one cloud, not the other, or networking simplicity available in one cloud and not the other. And typically, the relevant teams we talk to are the digital teams, the developers, and also primarily the IT ops teams. This is what we see among our customers. Now, the way we see it play out is that there's several use cases. I can group them into three here, one is basically development in the cloud. So basically, you're spinning up a new app and you're developing in the cloud. So developers are doing this. Primarily developers, less DevOps. Second is moving production apps to the cloud. In case of production apps, they'll keep some apps on-prem. They'll pull some apps on the cloud. They'll refactor these apps to make them more efficient, and so on, right? And the third is that, hey, how can I use the cloud for scalability, right? So I may want to use the on-prem as a primary, but I want to use the cloud as be able to burst to the cloud or use it for scalability. So these are like roughly three use cases I've seen. There's more, of course, but these are some of the ones that I talk about with customers. Next slide. And then just a little bit here, right? We talked about building apps in the cloud from the beginning. And what's driving that really is in the cloud, it's automation. Companies want to be able to spin up an app in minutes as opposed to hours or days, which could be a problem. Second is that they may want to deploy and redeploy an app, changing versions, so they can change the functionality of an app, change something here, change something there, and get immediate feedback from users. Second part of this is app transformation. How can I make that happen? How can I make these apps be able to change and develop them? So this is about app transformation or refactoring these apps and potentially moving them from monoliths to microservices or something in between, like just refactor to smaller VMs before going to a microservices route or before going to a container route. Third part of it is that in the cloud, there's the advantage of using cloud functionality like auto-scale, service discovery, auto-configuration. All this means is that I can spin up an app, it will be discovered, the load balancer can send traffic to the app, and then as I need more capacity, the cloud infrastructure will add more capacity, and then more. So there's no like drop in performance, right? In fact, the cloud will adjust to the capacity requirements of the application based on the clients accessing the application. So that's the three reasons. And then what we're seeing then is infrastructure that's built on-prem being duplicated in the cloud. Here what I mean by that, the IT ops owns an app infrastructure, and then there where they run production apps, and here they're sending some of these apps to the cloud. There's also an infrastructure owned by the DevOps team or the digital teams within the line of business. These are the guys who are developing apps quickly, and so they are building using potentially a PaaS platform on-prem, and they're also using since they need access to load balancers. They typically spin up another layer of load balancer, like an open source load balancer, and then tie that into their automation framework, like a build pipeline like CI/CD, and also a logging infrastructure and a configuration infrastructure as well, right?
So Mikko, this goes back to the digital transformation that we've been talking about, right? And essentially the change in it's a new world out there now where there's the speed of the development of the apps is also very critical.
Yep, that's right. Right, so what we're seeing is that this infrastructure is being pushed to the cloud, right? So they may spin up applications in the cloud and taking some of these elements with them. So in the next slide, Nihal, what we're seeing is when you're developing in the cloud, this case is using all the cloud elements, right? Here, I spin up in AWS, I create a virtual private cloud. I use AWS elements like a load balancer like ELB, and I use their DNS services, Route 53, and I use, of course, their compute capacity. And AWS has a variety of tooling for analytics and CI/CD, so I can use those. And then I can use APIs to automate this, right? So this is pretty much, the outcome is an effective, it's an effective solution. It's useful, it's a time saver, and can be cost efficient. When I say it can be cost efficient, if you don't watch your bandwidth throughput and time consumption, the cost can go up, right? So what we're telling customers, hey, this is a good way to go. You can do this. As you create more production environments, you may, and of course you can consume AWS DevOps tooling, right? That's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. as you create more production environments in the cloud, I think it's important that you should really take a step back and look at how would you build this, right? Because now you're duplicating capacity or capability on-prem in the cloud, and you need to rely on the cloud infrastructure across multiple geographies. And since you're not owning infrastructure, it's a different ballgame here. And so the things to consider are things like, what are the network limitations in the cloud? So AWS, for example, has a limitation on how much traffic can go through their network. There's some issues about, or to think about things like IP addressing. Do you want static versus dynamic? And how do you want to access the applications you built on the cloud? Or do you want to do it through a DNS entry, so an FQDN, or using a static IP address? There are different sets of tools available, right, to manage the stack for ADCs. And these different tools, do you want to use tools, or do you want to use a standard-based tools across on-prem and off-prem? And how do you support service discovery for platforms that you may build on-prem and take to the cloud? Things like there's a lot of popularity around PaaS platforms from Pivotal Cloud Foundry, which I say PCF, or from Red Hat OpenShift, as well as container-based platform such as Kubernetes or Mises and Marathon, as well from the Apache Foundation or the supported versions from Mesosphere. So these are the things to think about when you're building this infrastructure. And so what we see tell our customers that there's a lot of challenges, yes, in moving to the cloud. And if you put NetScalers across all of them and use MAS as the layer, it becomes a more manageable way to tackle your cloud migration, and really to think about it as a hybrid cloud migration. And again, MAS is our glue to that. MAS provides you the analytics, the app health scoring, the ability to monitor and manage NetScaler's on-prem and off-prem. And we have a licensing scheme called pooled capacity, which allows you to really be flexible in using your licenses on-prem and off-prem. So that's called NetScaler pooled capacity. So, and as customers look at a way to save their licenses so that they don't have any stranded licenses, they can use their licenses on-prem and off-prem. Pooled licensing accomplishes that in spades. And we have customers who are taking full advantage of pooled capacity licensing. One thing here as well is GSLB, or multi-site availability. We have the ability to, so here the concept here is being able to share the capacity across multiple clouds, or on-prem and off-prem, and making sure that customers or clients who are accessing these services, this could be internal clients or actual external clients, are sent to the best performing application. So GSLB allows you to, NetScaler can share information about the health of apps running behind it in the cloud and on-prem, and then send traffic to the right NetScaler to service at client request. And this just gives you a diagram on GSLB. I think we don't really have to go through this, so it gives you just a quick view of GSLB. And I believe this sums it up really nicely, is that as customers move from on-premise data center to the on-premise data center and the cloud, and ultimately to have a multi-cloud architecture, NetScaler MAS and NetScaler ADCs is really a way for them to go, to be able to have the same common experience across all of these environments, and security profile, and so on, right? And then MAS allows you to control both devices, locations of devices, whatever that might be for NetScaler. Okay, I think the last bit here is we have a free trial. So we suggest as a next step is to try MAS. It's available from this URL, http://now.citrix.com/try-MAS. Nihal, off to you.
Thanks for walking through that, Mikko. And I think what I'd like to do now is turn it back to Jeremy and see if we have any questions from the audience.
Thanks, guys. That was really very informative. And we do have a lot of questions from the audience. So before we move into Q&A, just want to remind the audience that if you have a question you haven't already asked for our speakers, you can submit it to the Ask Question area on your screen. Simply type your question into the text box and hit Submit. And if we don't get to your question during the live session, we will certainly respond and follow up with you afterwards. All right, so the first question looks like it's for Nihal. Nihal, everyone has been talking about app delivery in this new world of hybrid multi-cloud. What do you think differentiates Citrix NetScaler from other vendors?
That's a great question, Jeremy. So, at Citrix, we've adopted a lightweight software-first approach to NetScaler. What that really means is you get the same experience. It's the same code base, regardless of what form factor it is, whether it's virtual instance, container, or hardware. It's the same code base, same experience, same look and feel, and the same APIs. If you look at some of our competitors, they're relying on proprietary hardware or proprietary chipsets, which really limits their functionality. They're not able to actually adapt to this new world and not be agile and scalable. With us, it's always been an approach where we can allow customers to add features and add more capabilities and make it easy for them, as Mikko covered in his presentation, to actually move their app workloads to the cloud. So I think we have a very key differentiators when it comes to NetScaler. Mikko, anything you want to add here?
Yeah, so the differentiation is that we have a software-first approach. It's also based on the culture of NetScaler. We focus on software, and that means we can optimize software across multiple platforms, including our platform, which is the MPX. And we do have some proprietary chipsets, but primarily really around SSL. What Nihal is pointing out is that some of our competitors have additional ASICs and they design their functionality around the ASICs. What that means, though, is that as they create their virtual versions, let's say, that runs on the cloud, there could be a gap as to when they can transfer functionality between their hardware platform to their software platform. Whereas for NetScaler, it's one code base. Therefore, as we build functionality for the hardware, it runs on the software automatically and quickly and right away. Right, so that's really what we find, and where we're not able to we're not able to turn it on in the software. It comes in, within 1 or 2 quarters, or within a short period or within a set period of time. We find that customers like the fact that the NetScalers are proven for both the cloud and on-prem. So the VPX, for example, was released in 2009. So it's had cloud expertise now for many, many years, and is available across multiple clouds. And in fact, is powering some of our customers use the VPX as an ADC they offer as a service to their own customers. Yep. Next question. Yep.
That's great. So it sounds like our software approach makes us just the most flexible option. All right, another question for Nihal. I am an existing NetScaler customer. Our team is planning to migrate some of our application workloads to the public cloud. We already have made a significant investment in on-premise NetScalers. What is Citrix's recommendation to protect that investment?
That's another great question, and we get that a lot from our customers. So Mikko mentioned the pooled capacity approach that we have, which essentially allows us to share. Our NetScaler customers have the ability to share bandwidth across their NetScaler deployments, whether they're on-premise or in the cloud, and it doesn't matter what form factor, virtual or container or whatever. And this approach really allows you to protect the investment that you've made. You're not necessarily locked into the hardware purchase, and you're free to actually move your licenses where your business needs arise.
That's right. So the key point here is that you can get pooled licensing. So this is called pooled licensing, and pooled licensing could be the following, right? The customer is refreshing their NetScalers, let's say, and then they can then, which happens quite a bit, right? Customers refresh their hardware kit, and so instead of buying another boxes of NetScaler, they can buy a license model we call pooled licensing, where they can basically carve out the software part of it and the hardware part of it, and that gives them the flexibility to use the software in the cloud or on-prem, and they go back and forth if they wish, right? So it affords a very nice way to consume hybrid cloud, right? Because we simplify the licensing model, and we now have customers actually doing this, and we see more customers coming on board this pooled licensing model.
That's great. The next question, and we're getting a lot of questions around NetScaler Mass. So Nihal, in your NetScaler Mass demo, you touched upon the application health, security, and analytics pieces. What are some of the other benefits from Mass?
Yeah, and we didn't get really a chance to get into the orchestration piece, which is another great thing that NetScaler Mass does, is the orchestration with some of the cloud management and SDN providers out there. So this is really providing that functionality to actually integrate with application deployment workflows and automate the actual network services. And for example, NetScaler Mass integrates with VMware as well as Cisco ACI and Kubernetes, which I believe, Mikko, you know quite extensively. The integration between NetScaler Mass and Kubernetes is quite popular with some of our customers.
That's right. So going back, so Mass is a very important piece for us, and the key advantages there, as Nihal mentioned, is it's across clouds, managing across NetScalers across different clouds, and it's available as a service as well as on-prem as an on-prem solution. And it's got it supports orchestration for that. So it acts as a NetScaler controller, tying into service discovery with different types of platforms like Red Hat OpenShift, for example, which is coming shortly. And now what's shipping now is Kubernetes and Mises and Marathon, for example. And so customers who are looking at orchestration, Mass is that vehicle for them to be able to control a fleet of NetScalers in this environment. And so Mass fits nicely as a management plane, analytics plane, and also as a orchestration plane.
Great. Here's a question for Mikko. What specific suggestions do you have for IT operations teams that want to engage their digital team counterparts or developers on this digital transformation that's taking place?
Right. So, I mean, I get this quite a bit, right? Essentially, we find that there is a sort of two types of customers. One type where the IT ops team is separate from the digital or the line of business app development DevOps team. And so there's a sort of and they work together, but they're separate. And another type of company is where the digital team, DevOps team, and the IT ops team are part of the same organization, but they may have different leaders, but they're part of the same organization, so they're part of effectively the same overall team. In both cases, what I believe is important is for communication, right? So it's good for the IT ops team to learn what's happening in the digital team, so that they can be part of this they can then work and meet their requirements. So as digital teams, they have requirements for spinning applications in the cloud. The IT ops team can provide solutions for that. That is one, robust, so it meets security requirements. Number two, it is ties into existing well-known IT ops processes for like troubleshooting, and for example, so that the apps that are spun up in the cloud are high-performance apps, effectively, right? And so the IT ops team needs to work with the digital teams.
All right, that's great. I think we have time for one more. Mikko, can you share some insights into what role network automation would play in all of this?
It plays everywhere, right? So what we're seeing is that customers are using either they're building their own so they're using things like Ansible and Puppet and Chef to automate network deployments for on-prem NetScalers. So that's one. So they may want to use similar tools, but in this case, they're really more cloud tools like CloudFormation and Terraforms to spin up NetScalers in the cloud and tie them into the cloud infrastructure and so on, right? That's one aspect. So the other aspect of automation is using a neatly packaged solution like OpenShift, which is a PaaS, which has automation built in, right? So it can spin up an app, spin up a load balancer or an ADC like NetScaler and so on, and then the app gets tied in, and as the app capacity needs to grow, automatically does that. This is like full automation. This automation can be sent to the cloud because you can run OpenShift in the cloud and so on, right? So we're seeing that automation is a big part. In fact, it's one area that here at Citrix we're going to be focusing on quite heavily.
That's fabulous. Well, that's about it for our time today. I want to thank everyone who attended. I want to thank our speakers for giving such a great and informative talk. The end of today's session brings us to the conclusion, and we can tell you that you can still visit citrix.com to learn more about NetScaler. You can visit now.citrix.com/try-math to get a free trial of NetScaler Math. And you can check out and register for upcoming webinars and events by going to citrix.com events. We have many great webinars on this type of topic and others. Thanks again for joining us today, and have a great day.